The hours she can't account for. Elena first noticed the gaps on a Tuesday in March, or perhaps it was a Wednesday. That imprecision was, in itself, the first clue. She had been sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, reading the news on her phone, and then she was standing at the kitchen sink with an empty mug and the afternoon light slanting long and gold through the window. 4 hours had disappeared like a sentence she had forgotten mid-word. She told herself she had simply fallen asleep. People fall asleep in chairs. People lose afternoons. This is what tiredness does. She was a pediatric nurse working double shifts at a hospital, understaffed by design and by disaster. She had not slept properly in 3 weeks. She had earned the right to lose an afternoon. She washed the mug, made dinner, went to bed. She did not write it down. Later, she would understand that the not writing was important, that the part of her that had experienced those 4 hours did not want to be documented. The next gap came 6 days later. This one was subtler. She lost only 90 minutes, 11:14 p.m. to 12:49 a.m., but she lost them in the middle of a conversation with her sister on the phone. One moment, she was saying something about taking a vacation. The next moment, her sister was saying, "Elena, you went quiet. I thought the call dropped." "Sorry," Elena said. "The call must have cut out." She looked at the screen. No interruption logged. The call had remained connected for the full 90 minutes. Whatever she had said in that time, she had no access to it. She made a doctor's appointment the next morning. Dr. Mara Prentice was a GP who wore her skepticism like a comfortable coat, not dismissively, but efficiently. She listened to Elena describe the gaps with the expression of a person filtering for signal in a high-noise transmission. "Have you been under significant stress?" she asked. "Yes," Elena said, "but that's not new." Dissociative episodes can be triggered by chronic stress even in people who have experienced it for years, Dr. Prentice said. Typing notes without looking up. The threshold isn't always where we expect it. I'd like you to track the episodes. Time, duration, any preceding circumstances. We'll refer you to a psychiatrist. In the meantime, rest where you can. Elena left with a referral and the particular loneliness of being given an explanation that felt correct and wrong simultaneously. She began tracking. Over the next 3 weeks, she lost time on 9 separate occasions. The shortest gap was 22 minutes. The longest was 7 hours, a full working night shift that she arrived at, apparently, clocked in for, worked through, and returned home from, without retaining a single moment of. Her colleagues said she had seemed fine, competent, focused, even. They said she had been quieter than usual. The tracking notebook filled up. She did her best to note what she remembered before each gap, the position of her body, what she had been thinking, whether she had been anxious or calm. There was no pattern she could find. The gaps came when they came, for as long as they lasted, and left her exactly where she had been, doing whatever needed doing, as though She had never been absent. It was the psychiatrist, a thin, careful man named Dr. Alec Rowe, who suggested she begin looking at the evidence. Not just tracking when it happens, he said, but documenting what changed. Objects moved, tasks completed, things you find afterward that you don't remember doing. You think I'm doing things I don't remember, she said. I think something is, he said carefully. She began to look. She found a grocery receipt from a store she had never visited, time-stamped during a gap. She found a library book on her nightstand, The Divided Self, by R.D. Laing, that she had no memory of requesting. She found, in her handwriting, a note tucked behind the bathroom mirror that said, "Only, I know what you're looking for. You're not going to find it this way." She read that note 11 times in a row. She brought the note to Dr. Rowe. He photographed it carefully and asked her whether she had considered that she might have written it in a different cognitive state, that her dissociative self was perhaps aware of her efforts and communicating. Communicating what? She said. That's what we need to understand, he said. She went home and looked behind the mirror again. There was a second note she had missed the first time, written in the same hand but smaller, pressed against the backing, where the light didn't reach. I'm not the one you should be afraid of. She stopped sleeping well, which was new. She had always been able to sleep, regardless of circumstances. She lay awake, cataloging possibilities. A personality disorder she had somehow developed without notice. A tumor exerting pressure on a temporal lobe. An elaborate breakdown playing out in slow motion, its mechanisms hidden from her by the very faculties she needed to understand them. What she could not make herself believe, even now, was the explanation that crept in at 3 a.m. and refused to be dismissed entirely. That she was not alone in her body. She began leaving voice memos on her phone, running during every waking moment. Not recording herself, but leaving the phone where she would be, so that if a gap came, it would catch something. She got 12 minutes of audio before the first gap hit. Then silence for 6 hours. Then her own voice, calm and functional, completing some task she couldn't identify by sound alone. And then, at the 6:14:07 mark, before she knew she had returned, a pause in whatever she was doing. And a voice. Her voice. But not her cadence. Not her rhythm. Something more precise. More deliberate. Like a familiar instrument played by a different musician. The voice said, "She's been very brave about this. I want you to know that. If you're listening, Elena, you have been extraordinarily brave." A pause. Then, "I'm sorry it frightened you. The notes were meant to help. I should have known they wouldn't." Then the sound of a tap running. Then nothing. Until Elena's own voice returned, tired and normal, saying something about needing to eat. She listened to those 47 seconds for the rest of the night. She brought the recording to Dr. Rowe the following morning. He listened to it twice with his careful expression and said that This was consistent with a dissociative identity presentation that the alter ego, or whichever framework they chose to apply, was demonstrating awareness of both Elena's distress and Elena's investigation. It knows I'm looking, Elena said. It's been watching you look, he corrected gently. She thought about that. About the hours she couldn't account for. The body that went on functioning without her. The life that continued whether she was present in it or not. She thought, who am I when I'm not here? She decided to talk to it. She left the voice memo running on her kitchen table with a note beside it. Written with the deliberate neatness of someone speaking to a stranger in their own handwriting. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I want to understand. If you can hear this, please answer. She waited for a gap. She waited for 2 days, hyper alert, clocking every moment. And then she was in the middle of washing a glass, and she was not. And then she was again. And the glass was in the rack, and the note had been turned over. And on the back, in writing so like hers, it was nearly indistinguishable. You have been afraid for a long time. Not of me. Of what happened before me. She sat down very slowly on the kitchen floor. Her therapist, when she reported this, suggested that they attempt to access this inner presence directly through dialogue exercises, through hypnotherapy, through the patient work of building a communication channel between parts of a fractured whole. Dr. Rowe used the word integration. He used it carefully, the way a surgeon explains a procedure whose complications he is not ready to enumerate. Elena heard the word and felt, for just a moment, the same formless dread she had felt at 11 years old, lying in the dark of a hospital room. She no longer let herself remember. Then she put that away too. Integration took 14 months. It was not a single process with a single revelation. It was a long, slow archaeology of herself, conducted with professional guidance and with the strange, tender cooperation of the part of her that had been running the hours she couldn't account for. The part that remembered. The part that had taken on the work of survival when survival had required leaving no evidence. She learned what had been remembered for her. She learned why the remembering had been impossible. She learned the particular geography of a mind that had split itself in order to remain whole. The borders it had drawn, the territories it had kept separate, the care it had taken with her all these years, while she believed herself to be a single, continuous person. She had not been a single person for 31 years. After integration, the gaps stopped. This should have been relief, and it was. But it was also a quiet grief, the way she imagined losing a twin would feel. The voice that was not her cadence was gone. The notes had stopped. The part of her that had learned to navigate the world in her absence had learned, instead, to stay. She kept the notes, the ones behind the mirror, the ones in the notebook, the voice memo. She kept them in a box in her closet, not because she needed them, but because something she could not fully name wanted them to exist somewhere. Testimony. Proof that something had been working very hard to protect her for a very long time, without her knowledge or permission, without her gratitude, too. Until now, she returned to work. She slept most nights all the way through. She did not lose time. She was a single thread drawn through the fabric of her days, present, continuous, accountable. Sometimes, when she woke at 3 a.m. out of old habit, she lay still in the dark and listened for the particular quality of silence that had once meant someone else was using her hours. She never heard it. She was almost entirely sure she did not miss it. But sometimes, in the in-between places, the unguarded minutes between sleeping and waking, between one thought and the next, she felt something that was not quite a presence and not quite a memory. Something that had learned to love her from the inside. Something that had said, once, in her voice, but not her rhythm, "You have been extraordinarily brave." She chose, every time, to believe it. Elena's story isn't about a monster in the dark. It's about the mind's extraordinary capacity to carry what we cannot, to lock a door from the inside, stand watch for decades, and still find a way to slip us a note. If something in you has been working overtime to hold you together, that is not a fracture. That is a kind of love. The hours you can't account for, they were never lost. Someone was keeping them safe for you. Stay curious, stay brave, and we'll see you in the next story. If this one found you, perhaps it was meant to. Like and follow the channel, and we'll see you in the dark.